Commander Sarah
Masumiyetim
Mitchell
açıkça
finally proved her
ortadadır.
innocence after 8
Bu
years of
belgeler her
fighting.
şeyi
The Navy
kanıtlıyor.
exonerated her, cleared her record, restored her rank, acknowledged she'd been wrongly accused and convicted. It was justice. It was vindication. It was everything she'd fought for. Except to clear Sarah's name, the Navy had to convict someone else. Had to find the person actually responsible for the medication diversion Sarah had been blamed for. That person was Lieutenant Jennifer Park, who was also innocent. Sarah's vindication created Jennifer's destruction. Jennifer fought for 8 years and finally proved her innocence, which required convicting Captain Rebecca Cross, who was also innocent. Rebecca's vindication created the next victim, and that victim's vindication created another, and another, because the system required someone to be guilty, and proving innocence meant finding a new scapegoat, which meant the cycle of injustice never ended, just moved to the next person. This is a story about recursive destruction, about how solving one injustice creates another, about victory that requires creating the next victim, about a cycle that can never be broken because the system demands someone be guilty. It started at Naval Hospital, San Diego. $75,000 worth of controlled substances had gone missing over 18 months. Systematic diversion. Someone was stealing narcotics. The investigation pointed to Commander Sarah Mitchell. Pharmacy records showed medications signed out under her credentials. Her shifts correlated with the missing drugs. She'd had access, opportunity, and knowledge. Sarah was arrested and charged. She insisted she was innocent. I didn't steal anything. Someone used my access codes. Someone framed me, but she couldn't prove it. The evidence against her was circumstantial but compelling. Her credentials, her shifts, her access. She was convicted of theft and diversion, sentenced to 5 years confinement, dishonorable discharge, loss of rank and benefits. She fought the conviction for 8 years, filed appeals, hired lawyers, investigated on her own, spent every penny trying to prove her innocence, and finally found proof. Another nurse, Lieutenant Jennifer Park, had been systematically accessing the pharmacy system using stolen credentials, Sarah's credentials. Jennifer had figured out Sarah's password through social engineering and had been using it to steal medications while making it look like Sarah was responsible. Sarah presented the evidence. The Navy reopened the investigation, found conclusive proof that Jennifer had stolen Sarah's credentials and framed her. Sarah was exonerated. Conviction overturned. Record cleared. Rank restored. 8 years of her life returned. Sort of. Justice had been served. The Navy immediately charged Jennifer Park with the same crimes Sarah had been convicted of, plus additional charges for identity theft and framing an innocent person. Jennifer was shocked. I didn't steal medications. I didn't use Sarah's credentials. I'm being framed just like she was. But the evidence against Jennifer was the same evidence that had exonerated Sarah. Digital forensics showed Jennifer's computer had accessed the pharmacy system using Sarah's credentials. Jennifer's bank account showed unexplained deposits consistent with selling diverted medications. That's not me. Someone planted that evidence. Someone hacked my computer and my bank account. Sarah testified against Jennifer. Lieutenant Park obtained my credentials through social engineering. She used them to steal medications while making it appear I was responsible. When I discovered what she'd done, she tried to cover her tracks. Jennifer's lawyer argued that Jennifer was innocent, that someone else had framed both women, that solving Sarah's injustice by convicting Jennifer just created a new injustice. But the Navy needed someone to be guilty. The medications were stolen. Someone was responsible. And if it wasn't Sarah, it had to be Jennifer. Jennifer was convicted. 5 years confinement, dishonorable discharge, loss of rank and benefits. The same sentence Sarah had received, for the same crime that neither of them had committed. Sarah felt vindicated. Justice was finally served. The real thief was caught. But Jennifer screamed as they led her away. I didn't do it. I'm innocent, just like you were. This isn't justice, it's just passing the blame to the next person. Jennifer fought her conviction just as Sarah had, spent 8 years investigating, hired lawyers, filed appeals, tried to prove her innocence. She discovered what Sarah had discovered. The evidence against her had been planted. Someone had hacked her computer. Someone had accessed the pharmacy system through her workstation. Someone had deposited money in her account to make it look like she'd profited from selling medications. That someone was Captain Rebecca Krause, a senior nurse who had administrative access to hospital systems, who had the technical skills to frame someone, who had been covering her tracks by systematically framing others. Jennifer found evidence. Rebecca had accessed Jennifer's workstation remotely, had planted files on Jennifer's computer, had transferred money to Jennifer's account from untraceable sources, had created the appearance of guilt while actually stealing the medications herself. Jennifer presented the evidence. The Navy reopened the investigation, found proof that Rebecca had framed Jennifer, just as Jennifer had supposedly framed Sarah. Jennifer was exonerated. Conviction overturned. Record cleared. Rank restored. Justice had been served. The Navy charged Rebecca Krause with theft, diversion, identity theft, and conspiracy. The evidence was compelling. Rebecca had accessed multiple people's accounts, had stolen medications, had framed 2 innocent women. Rebecca was horrified. "I didn't do any of this. I'm being framed. Don't you see the pattern? Sarah was innocent, and you convicted her. Jennifer was innocent, and you convicted her. Now you're convicting me. We're all innocent, but the Navy needed someone to be guilty. 3 investigations, 3 sets of evidence. Someone had to be responsible." Rebecca's lawyer tried to argue there was a deeper conspiracy, that someone was systematically framing nurses one after another, that convicting Rebecca just continued the cycle. But who? If not Sarah, and not Jennifer, and not Rebecca, then who? The Navy couldn't leave the case unresolved, couldn't admit that they'd convicted 3 innocent people in sequence, needed Rebecca to be guilty so Sarah and Jennifer could stay innocent. Rebecca was convicted. 5 years confinement, dishonorable discharge, loss of rank and benefits, the same sentence, the same crime that she hadn't committed. Jennifer felt vindicated. Justice was finally served. The person who framed me was caught, but Rebecca screamed the same thing Jennifer had screamed: "I'm innocent." This isn't justice, it's just a cycle of scapegoating. Rebecca fought her conviction for 8 years, discovered she'd been framed by Commander Lisa Anderson, found evidence, got exonerated. Lisa was convicted. Lisa fought for 8 years, discovered she'd been framed by Lieutenant Marcus Webb, got exonerated. Marcus was convicted. Marcus fought for 8 years, discovered he'd been framed by Captain Patricia Hayes, got exonerated. Patricia was convicted. Each vindication required a new conviction. Each innocent person proved their innocence by finding the next scapegoat. Each victory created the next victim. The cycle continued. Patricia would fight for 8 years, would discover she'd been framed by someone else, would get exonerated. That person would be convicted, and the cycle would continue forever, because the system required someone to be guilty. And proving innocence meant finding someone else to blame, which meant the injustice never ended, it just moved from person to person in an endless chain. 12 years after her exoneration, Sarah was working as a civilian nurse when she saw a news story. Navy Commander Patricia Hayes exonerated after 8 years. Evidence shows she was framed. Sarah felt sick. She'd been following the case. Knew Patricia was the 6th person in the chain, the 6th innocent person convicted for the same crime. She contacted Jennifer, the woman who'd been convicted after her. They met for coffee. "Did you see the news?" Sarah asked. Patricia Hayes was exonerated. Good for her. She was innocent, just like I was. "Jennifer, don't you see the pattern? You were convicted to exonerate me. Rebecca was convicted to exonerate you. Lisa was convicted to exonerate Rebecca. Marcus was convicted to exonerate Lisa. Patricia was convicted to exonerate Marcus, and now someone else will be convicted to exonerate Patricia." Jennifer frowned. But each investigation found evidence. Each person really did frame the previous person, or did they? What if the evidence was planted each time? What if there's someone or something creating this cycle deliberately? That's a conspiracy theory, is it? 6 people convicted, 6 people exonerated. Each exoneration requiring the next conviction. Don't you think that's suspicious? Jennifer was quiet. "Even if you're right, what can we do?" The Navy investigated thoroughly each time, found conclusive evidence each time, evidence that keeps pointing to innocent people, evidence that creates an endless cycle of victims. But if we're all innocent, who's actually guilty? Sarah had no answer. Sarah couldn't let it go. She contacted Rebecca, Lisa, Marcus, and Patricia. All 6 of them, the chain of victims, met together. "We were all convicted of the same crime," Sarah told the group. "Each of us fought for 8 years. Each of us found evidence that the next person framed us. Each of us got exonerated by convicting someone else. Rebecca added, and each of us insists we're innocent, but the Navy found compelling evidence against each of us. Patricia, the most recent victim, was bitter. I just spent 8 years fighting a conviction for something I didn't do. I proved Lieutenant Commander David Chen framed me. He's being charged now. Are you telling me he's innocent too? Maybe, Sarah said. Think about it. Each investigation found digital evidence. Files on our computers, bank deposits, access logs, all perfectly incriminating, all perfectly planted. Marcus, but planted by whom? If Chen didn't frame you, and you didn't frame me, and I didn't frame Lisa, ... Who did? Silence. Jennifer finally said, what if it's not a person? What if it's something systemic? What if the investigation process itself creates the evidence? That doesn't make sense, Lisa argued. The Navy forensics team finds real evidence, real files, real transactions, but what if the evidence is manufactured by someone who has access to frame anyone? Someone with system-level access who can plant evidence on any of us. Sarah felt cold realization. Someone with administrator privileges to all hospital systems, all personnel files, all bank accounts, someone who can make anyone look guilty. That would require incredible technical skills and unrestricted access, Marcus said. Very few people have that level of authority. They all realized it at the same moment. There was someone with that level of access, someone who'd been involved in every single investigation, someone who'd had the means, opportunity, and knowledge to frame all of them. The lead investigator, Special Agent Thomas Bradford, from NCIS.KO, NS, about Bradford. He was the Navy's trusted investigator, the one who'd solved each case by finding evidence against the next victim, so they investigated quietly, pooled resources, hired a private cybersecurity firm. The firm found something disturbing. Bradford had accessed hospital systems, personnel files, and banking systems during each investigation, using official investigator credentials, yes, but accessing far more than necessary for each case, making changes to files, planting evidence. The evidence was subtle, easy to miss if you weren't looking for it, but consistent across all 6 cases. Bradford had been creating the evidence, framing innocent people, one after another, for 12 years. But why? What did he gain? They kept digging, found that Bradford had been promoted after successfully solving each high-profile case. His career had advanced steadily through the series of investigations. Each conviction had enhanced his reputation as a brilliant investigator. He'd built his career on framing innocent people, and he'd gotten away with it because each victim, once exonerated, had no reason to question the evidence that convicted the next person. Each thought justice had been served when someone else went to prison. They had proof, they had motive, they had means. They took it to the Navy Inspector General. The IG investigated Bradford, found the evidence compelling, arrested him for conspiracy, fabricating evidence, obstruction of justice, and wrongful prosecution. Bradford maintained his innocence. I investigated each case properly. I followed the evidence. If evidence was planted, someone else planted it. Someone is framing me now, just like they framed all these nurses. The 6 victims attended his court, watched him use the same defense they'd all used. I'm innocent. Someone else did this. I'm being scapegoated. And they felt sick, because they'd all said the same things. And they'd all been telling the truth. And Bradford might be telling the truth too. His lawyer argued, Special Agent Bradford is the 7th person accused of this crime. The pattern is clear. Whoever proves their innocence creates the next victim. Now Bradford is that victim. If you convict him, you're just continuing the cycle. But the Navy needed closure, needed someone to be ultimately responsible. Couldn't admit that 7 innocent people had been convicted in sequence. Bradford was convicted. 20 years confinement for multiple counts of evidence, fabrication, and wrongful prosecution. The 6 nurses felt vindicated. Finally, the person actually responsible. But Bradford screamed as they led him away. I'm innocent. I didn't frame anyone. This is just the cycle continuing. Someone framed me. Bradford fought his conviction, spent 5 years investigating from prison, found evidence that someone had hacked his investigator credentials, had used his access to plant evidence in each case, had framed him by making it look like he'd been framing others, that someone was Commander Richard Walsh, the hospital's chief information security officer. Walsh had system-level access to everything, had the technical skills to frame anyone. had been present during all 6 original investigations. Bradford presented the evidence. The Navy reopened the investigation, found that Walsh had indeed accessed Bradford's credentials, had planted evidence of evidence planting, had created the appearance that Bradford was the master manipulator when Walsh was actually responsible. Bradford was exonerated. Walsh was convicted. The cycle continued. Sarah received notification of Bradford's exoneration, felt nauseated. It happened again. He was innocent. He was telling the truth, and we helped convict him. Jennifer, but the evidence against Walsh is conclusive. He really did frame Bradford. This time, we have the actual culprit. That's what we thought about Bradford. That's what we thought about each person in the chain. When does it end? It ends with Walsh. He's the one with the access and skills to pull this off. Walsh fought his conviction for 6 years, discovered he'd been framed by someone with even higher level access, a civilian contractor named Michael Torres, who'd been maintaining the hospital's network infrastructure for 8 years. Torres had access to everything, could have planted evidence on anyone, including Walsh. Walsh was exonerated. Torres was convicted. Sarah, Jennifer, Rebecca, Lisa, Marcus, Patricia, and Bradford, all 7 original victims, met again. It's happened again, Sarah said. Walsh was innocent. He proved it by convicting Torres, just like we all did. Bradford, who'd spent 5 years in prison before his exoneration, was angry. How many times does this have to happen before the Navy realizes the pattern? Each investigation finds conclusive evidence. Each conviction is based on solid proof, and each person is innocent. So who's actually guilty? Rebecca asked. If we're all innocent, if Bradford was innocent, if Walsh was innocent, if Torres claims he's innocent, who stole the medications? Marcus realized something. What if no one stole them? What if the entire theft was fabricated? What if the original inventory discrepancy was an accounting error or system glitch, and everything since then has been the Navy trying to find someone to blame? That's insane, Lisa said. The medications were missing. That's not a glitch. Are we sure? Did anyone actually verify the physical inventory against the records? Or did we all just accept that there was a $75,000 theft, because that's what the investigation claimed? They didn't know. None of them had questioned the premise that medications were stolen. They'd only fought about who stole them. Sarah felt a chill. If the theft was never real, then this entire cycle, all 8 convictions, all the destroyed lives, was based on nothing. We've been fighting over a crime that never happened. They petitioned the Navy to review the original inventory discrepancy, to physically verify whether medications were actually missing. The Navy resisted. That was 12 years ago. The medications are long gone, used, or disposed of. There's no way to physically verify now. But you can review the original documentation, check if the inventory procedures were followed correctly, determine if the discrepancy was real or an error. The Navy finally agreed, assigned new investigators, who hadn't been involved in any previous case. They found something disturbing. The original inventory discrepancy had been based on a database error. A software glitch during a system upgrade had double-counted certain medication categories while deleting records of other dispensations. The $75,000 theft was actually a combination of legitimate prescriptions that had been administered but not properly recorded, and duplicate counting of inventory. That had never been a theft. The entire 12-year cycle of accusations, convictions, and reconvictions had been based on a database error. 9 people had been convicted: Jennifer, Rebecca, Lisa, Marcus, Patricia, Bradford, Walsh, and Torres, all for a crime that never happened. All of them were exonerated. The Navy issued formal apologies to all 9, provided compensation, offered to restore their careers and benefits, but the damage was irreversible. Between them, they'd spent over 70 years fighting convictions. 70 years of their lives consumed by proving innocence for crimes that didn't exist. Sarah, 8 years fighting her conviction. Jennifer, 8 years fighting hers. Rebecca, 8 years. Lisa, 8 years. Marcus, 8 years. Patricia, 8 years. Bradford, 5 years. Walsh, 6 years. Torres, for years before the pattern was finally discovered. 70 collective years, destroyed by a database error and a system that required someone to be guilty. They met one final time. 9 people who'd been strangers but were now bound by shared destruction. What do we do now? Jennifer asked. We rebuild, Sarah said. We accept that we can't get those years back. We accept the apologies and compensation. We move forward. But what about the next time? Bradford asked. What happens when another database error creates another theft? Will the Navy learn from this, or will they just start convicting people again? No one had an answer, because the system hadn't really changed. The need to find someone guilty when something went wrong that remained. The cycle could start again at any time. Sarah was working as a civilian nurse educator when she saw a news story. Naval Hospital Portsmouth reports major medication theft. Investigation underway. Her blood ran cold. She called Jennifer. Did you see the news? Portsmouth is reporting a theft. Please tell me they're checking for database errors before they start arresting people. Sarah researched the Portsmouth case, found that they'd already arrested someone, Lieutenant Commander Ashley Morgan, charged with theft and diversion based on circumstantial evidence. They're doing it again. They haven't learned anything. Sarah contacted Ashley's defense attorney. You need to check if the theft is real or a database error. The Navy has a history of convicting innocent people for thefts that never happened. The attorney was skeptical. The Navy conducted a thorough investigation. The evidence against Commander Morgan is compelling. That's what they said about 9 other people, all of whom were innocent, all of whom were exonerated. After spending years in prison, 9 people. I hadn't heard about that. The Navy kept it quiet, but it happened. And it's about to happen again if you don't force them to verify the theft is real before you let your client be convicted. The attorney investigated, found that Portsmouth's theft report was indeed based on an inventory discrepancy, demanded independent verification before the case proceeded. The Navy checked, found another database error. The theft wasn't real. Ashley Morgan was cleared before conviction. The cycle was interrupted. This time, Sarah continued monitoring military medical theft investigations, became an unofficial advocate for nurses, accused of diversion. She found cases at 3 other facilities where the pattern was starting, inventory discrepancies leading to accusations, circumstantial evidence, convictions based on database errors. Each time, she intervened, forced verification, prevented innocent convictions, but she couldn't be everywhere, couldn't monitor every case, couldn't stop every cycle. One night, Jennifer called. Sarah, I just read about a case at Naval Hospital Yokosuka. A nurse was convicted of medication theft 2 years ago. Just saw her appeal. She claims the theft was a database error and she was framed. Does that sound familiar? Sarah felt exhausted. It never ends, does it? We stop one cycle. It starts somewhere else. We catch one error. Another facility makes the same mistake. So what do? We keep fighting. We keep intervening. We keep trying to break cycles before they destroy more lives. For how long? Forever, probably, because the system won't change. The need to find someone guilty that's built in. Database errors will keep happening. Investigations will keep finding scapegoats. And innocent people will keep being convicted unless someone fights for them. Jennifer was quiet. Then, so our vindication, it didn't really end anything, did it? We just became aware of the cycle. And now we're stuck trying to prevent it for others. That's all vindication ever does. It solves your injustice by creating awareness, but it doesn't end the pattern. The pattern continues forever. It just moves to the next victim, unless someone stops it. And who stops it? We try, we intervene when we can, but we can't be everywhere. We can't catch every error. The cycle continues. So we're just managing it forever. We're just managing it forever. Because that's how recursive destruction works. You solve one injustice, which creates the next, which creates the next, which creates the next. Forever. The cycle never ends. It just moves, and victory means nothing but awareness that the pattern continues. Sarah had proven her innocence, had been vindicated, had stopped being a victim, but the system that created victims, that continued. Forever.